Hi, welcome back to Better. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I know many of you watch my show, and a lot of my shows are very educational. They're upbeat, but today this is a serious show. And a show that I haven't seen one out there on TV before, and it's a subject that needs to be discussed. I just want to call out some names for you and give you some information about these people's names that I'm calling out. Emmett. On August 24th, 1955, this 14-year-old Chicago teen, while on vacation in Mississippi, was reportedly accused of looking at a white woman. And most of you know that this young man was beaten by some white men to death. And we have James. James, on June 21st, 1964, he and some fellow civil rights workers were arrested and killed at the hands of the KKK. We have Willie, January 23rd, 1957. Klansmen chased him thinking he was sleeping with a white woman. And of course, they drug him down the street by the back of a car. We have Michael. March 1981, Michael was lynched here in the United States. This is March 20th, 1981. We have another Michael, December 19th, 1986. His car broke down in Howard Beach, Queens, and after he left a pizzeria, 4 men were attacked by him. He was attacked by 4 men. We have another young man in Brooklyn, New York, and he was shot and killed twice in the chest for no reason at all. And of course, we all know about Trayvon Martin, young black man walking home from a convenience store, killed for no reason at all. We have Aaron Campbell, January of 2010, shot dead by police. We have Oscar Grant in the Bay Area, riding, what we call the light rail here, killed for no reason at all. We have Darius Simmons. He was taking out his trash, and a white man killed him because he was afraid of him. Here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we have Jonathan, September 2013. A young man that was in an awful car accident, dazed and confused. He knocked on the door where he was, and the police came and killed him. And the stories go on and on and on. So today our show is a very serious show. My guest today is a friend of mine named Kit. He's been on my show before. And I said, I want you to come on my show and let's just talk about this and see where is the state of our young black men today. I'm almost afraid for them. It's like they're an endangered species that is a free-for-all. But before I start crying, I'm sorry, Kit, I feel the tears coming because I have a younger brother. I have cousins that are men, and I'm afraid for them. So, Kit, after I read those names through, and I know it was quite a few of them, what was going through your mind?
Well, what goes through my mind is how young people are reacting to hearing these stories. Mm-hmm. We all watch the news, and kids are very attuned to what's going on in their society mm-hmm. because we have the internet and communication isn't hindered as it used to be. But there are countless names that you covered and that aren't on that list.
And there are more.
There's a lot of them, and we have to find out as a system what we are doing that's causing young black men to be the targets of people's random violence or actually pointed violence, because a lot of these are racial issues, and the perception of the black man or black youth being a threat or hindrance to the to humanity. A lot of people find them scary, and with the availability of firearms and guns in our society now, that aggression that people have in a racial sense toward black youth could be manifest in killing. I mean, we've seen it. We've, like you said, you mentioned Trayvon Martin, and everybody knows that case is the most publicized. I mean, even Jamie Foxx has jumped on that to make that a cause that he's enthralled by. Just to know that you can be perceived as a threat when you have no kind of malice. You can go into a store. You can walk in a neighborhood where people don't think you belong, and the people who feel threatened may have a view of protecting their homes, but what about that kid that's walking around and he can't help that he's 6 foot tall, or he can't help that the way he dresses is acceptable in his neighborhood but not in another, and then to have somebody follow you when you're not knowing who this person is, to ask you basically, where are your papers, you know, what are you doing here, and whose business is that? Now, it seems like the laws now, as we know about the stand your ground and castle doctrine that's in a lot of states now, it's giving the shooters more of an excuse to exact their violence on.
So what's the castle doctrine? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, the castle doctrine is a premise of law that says that somebody doesn't have a duty to retreat. They can protect their well-being. They can protect people that are around them, those they love, their homes, things like that. So that says that when you have a chance to use deadly force, it can be justified if you say that you were in fear or of your property being taken or your life being endangered. It's just an extension of self-defense laws. That's all.
Ah, I see. So when you hear those names and you hear those stories, what do you as a black man, are you fearful for your life when you walk out of your home?
Well, I think growing up as a black male, a lot of people don't understand this unless you are a black male. There's always a fear, not a fear, but like a cautious demeanor that you take out into the world, especially when we go into places where we think that we're being watched, say in like department stores and things like that. When we're there to buy stuff, I mean, everybody knows that black people are the consumers that America thrives off of. We buy everything.
Yes, we do.
But we're not absolved from that suspicion when we go places. We feel it. It's something that's been taught to us by our mothers when we were younger. Like, don't go into a store with your hands in your pockets. You keep your hands out of your pockets. You, if you're talking to the police, make sure that they can see your hands. Don't make sudden movements. Don't argue. You know, and a lot of kids aren't taught to grow up like that. So it's kind of indoctrinated into us to realize that the world views us as a threat. So we have to become less threatening. We have to make sure that people know our pure intentions when we're around. I mean, of course, there's people all over that don't have good intentions, but how can you tell that by looking at someone? And the problem we have as black men is the perception that people have of us. It's not that we have problems. I mean, we could be the nicest person and look like who they would think is a criminal. But then again, you could be on an honor roll, and you can have a great job. You can be a doctor. You know, you can be a community activist. I mean, we've seen that with Oprah going into Switzerland, I think it was, and she tried to buy a bag, and this lady didn't know who she was, and she treated her like she shouldn't have been in that store. But little did she know that was Oprah Winfrey. So I think what the underlying thing when it comes to how black guys and black men and black boys are treated is the stereotypes that follow us, the negative stereotypes that suggest that we're gangster, we're supposedly aggressive and hostile and quick to react and stuff like that. But it's not like that. I mean, we have families, we have people that we love, we have kids that revere us. You know, they look up to us because we can be their role models. And but the person who makes a snap judgment because of whatever their racial hangups are, don't know that. And if that person is holding a gun and can justify shooting you, maybe they will. And we fear that.
So tell me, kid, I don't know exactly how you are. Please don't tell me. I'm assuming you were a teenager in the 70s and 80s.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
Am I being nice?
No, wait, you're being a little nice. Actually, I just turned 37, so yeah, I was a.
So yeah, that's about right.
I grew up in the 90s.
So, you grew up in the 90s?
In the 90s.
Ooh, I was really off. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
So, what did your parents teach you about how to handle yourself or carry yourself when you're away from home?
See, when I'm away from home, she always told me to be cognizant of where I was and who was watching me, not to watch people, but to be casually aloof to my situation, to be situationally aware, but to not allow people to know that I'm watching them watching me. And also to know that if I'm in a place where I don't look like I should be, I'm gonna have to make the folks that are there and own that establishment feel comfortable with me, not to get charged or to get accused actually of stealing when I haven't. I've had that happen to me before, and it wasn't me. It was I was in further north in Burlington with my cousins and my brother, and we went into a store and we got some gas, and and then we walked to the store to buy snacks, and we are gonna go down the road to somewhere, hang out with friends, and I saw my uncle in there, and it was me, my brother, my cousin, of course we're black, and the attendant was a white lady and another white gentleman, and we came in there, we paid for our snacks, and as we were leaving, we looked back. And it was the lady that was on the register was pointing at us, and I'm glad we saw that. So we turned around and asked her what the problem was. She was like, "You guys just stole gas, you know." And she was and luckily on my cousin's gauge on his car, it let us know exactly how much was put in, like how many gallons was, and it didn't match up. It matched up completely exactly to what was on the pump. So we let her know we paid for that. You know, that's exactly how much we have. And my uncle was in there watching the same thing, and he went and told the lady, like, they weren't stealing, they came here and spoke to me, and why didn't you say anything when they were in the store? So it just let us know, because my uncle finally revealed to us that she had a history of doing that. She would see young black men come up there and get gas, and then she would accuse them of stealing gas and write their number down, so later on you get pulled and don't know why. You get pulled by the police and they say that you ran from the scene of a crime or whatever, and you get charged with larceny. So she had been doing it to a lot of people, but luckily I saw her in the rearview mirror, and that didn't happen to us. So that lets you know how when we as black guys are always trying to make sure we're not put in situations where we get in trouble, and not for any of our own doing. We did everything we were supposed to do, but she used what she knew as the systemic racism that would have the police believe her over us against us. But luckily we had witnesses and a good eyesight. So,
you know, when you first started talking, you mentioned that your mother told you these things. What are some things your father told you?
Well, my father told me that whenever I go somewhere, like the same thing my mom told me. He said to make sure that when you go to a store, because when I was young, I used to spend a lot of time with him, and I go to different stores. He was like, make sure you, well, he didn't call me Kick, he called me Kickers, but he said, make sure you stand beside me and don't put your hands in your pocket. And you know, and as a kid, I thought that he was teaching me not to steal, but what he was really teaching me was an underlying lesson to that. Don't make people think you're stealing. So yeah, it's always that, and that I think most black men have had that talk. And we get that talk about how to operate in a white-dominated society before we get the sex talk. We get that.
Oh, really?
Yes. You're 4 or 5 when you get to talk about the police and things like that, but you're a teenager when you get to talk about the birds and the bees.
You know what, Kick, on that, let's take a short break. When we come back, I want to ask you some more questions about this subject, okay?
All right.
Wow.
Okay, I feel like I'm stuck.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's 1 every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Or you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're gonna beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Hi, welcome back to Betty. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson, here with Kick, and he's giving us some insight on what it's like to be a young black man in America when so many of our young black men are killed at such an early age. And I read off a slew of names. And you mentioned before we went on break about going to the gas station. There was a young man, I don't remember his name, but he was killed at a gas station for having his music too loud.
Yeah, that's Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis, thank you.
He was shot and killed by a guy named Chris Dunn, an older white gentleman. And what happened was that he was Jordan Davis and his friends that pulled up in their SUV. They were playing their music very loud, I guess, and the Chris Dunn, he didn't like the fact that they were playing music loud. His wife got out and got some snacks in the car, and he confronted these guys. They said something back to him, and he reached into his glove compartment or his console and emptied the clip into their car. He killed Jordan Davis, but he injured Jordan Davis's friends. So that's one of those things that you teach your children, like, people out here can be crazy. You know what I'm saying? They might have problems with you that you don't know what these problems are. So maybe it's better to be so reactionary, you know, especially if it's something as silly as turning your music down.
Yeah.
You know, nobody should die for that.
Yeah.
But it's also a travesty of justice. It seems that the justice system tries to speak to us and send us a message that when they convicted this man, they convicted him of three felonies of attempted murder, but for the actual murder of Jordan Davis, he was exonerated. So that kid never got his justice. So we need to make sure that we train our kids to not become these victims, because now, as they used to they came up with this term in the 80s about black on black crime. That's a misnomer. It's a change now. It's really everybody on black men crime, because we are becoming we're the highest percentage of homicides in the inner city, and a lot of that is by our hand and gang members and stuff like that. In Chicago, it's rampant now. In Detroit, they have a problem like that. But in the South, there's more of a white man on black boy crime spree going on.
So tell me, Kik, you told us what your mother told you, what your father told you. When you have a little boy, and it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah, one day.
What are you going to tell him? What are you going to teach him? Or do you think he'll be faced with the same problem?
The way the trend is now, we're not on the downside of this trend. There's lopsided justice administered, and there's every month you hear about some youth dying at the hands of a gun. I mean, even if it's by one of his peers. I mean, like I said, Chicago is like Iraq now. I think they had something like 60 shootings last weekend or something, and 13 deaths. But what's going on, I think that I would tell my children when they came up that they need to stay in school, they need to be aware of how they can be perceived, and to not be so taken in by the media and popular culture that they want to look suspicious. Don't go around looking suspicious. Don't go around looking for problems so you can, prove people wrong, because a lot of these kids that are dying aren't they're not thugs or anything. They're just normal high school kids out for a weekend. We've all done it. We've all hung out when we were younger and weren't as respectful as we needed to be to people. But we got to realize there's crazy people out here that will take your life and use the law to justify them taking your life. So I would tell my kid that you got to know that you're going to be perceived as a threat. So do what you can to make sure you can prove those people wrong.
So, Kik, before we go, and I think we're running out of time because I think we need to continue this conversation because I have a lot more questions for you.
Okay.
If by chance you had an opportunity to talk to some young black men, like teenagers, what would you tell them about this growing trend of white men or women killing black boys?
Well, I guess what I would say is that the basis of crime is economics. If people don't have jobs, they're forced to do things that would probably go against the law and everything, and that's because of a lack of resources. So I would tell them to make sure you get your education, get you a talent, get you something that can turn into economic empowerment for you, because in the words of Malcolm X, he said that we've done so much with so little, now we're qualified to do anything with nothing. So knowing that we've grown up with a stretched dollar all of our lives and everything, and there's limited resources out here, make yourself economically empowered and empower your mind. Make sure that you're smart enough to know when to walk away and what things are gonna liberate you spiritually and I guess in your life. You know, the object of life is to stay alive, and with black kids, it's harder than most. So.
You know, Kit, I want to thank you for joining me today. This was a very heavy show. We're going to continue this conversation. So don't you go anywhere, because we are going to continue this. And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching my show, Better You, here on Public Access 21, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Wow, I didn't...